really because he had experience in Denver, but really more what he was able to do, believe it or not, in Arizona. That was a tough job for a number of years. So we're excited to have him on our defensive staff. We still have a few positions to finish with defensively. We're down to maybe a quality control spot on offense, so we're getting close. Pardon? Yeah, so we have two hires that are a little unique. It's excuse me, it's unusual for a player to come from a playing role literally last season, call it an active roster status, and then into a coaching position. We have that with Davis Webb, and then we have it with Chris Banjo as well. I'll start with Chris, actually. So I think it was one of the nights I was back in the hotel just really looking through rosters, players that I've coached, and we really had a good experience with Chris when he came from Green Bay to New Orleans, and I knew he was still playing in Arizona, but he was at that stage in his career where he was looking forward maybe to get into coaching. I had called him one night, and lo and behold, it was something that he wanted to do and do pretty quickly. Normally I would say it takes 2 years. There's a transition that it takes for players who are either away and then they want to get back in. And so back to Davis, he came highly recommended from, a bunch of different coaches, Brian Daboll, Eli Manning. I spoke to a number of people, kept hearing the same things about him. So we brought him in. I didn't have to do that with Chris, but I didn't know Davis, I remember him as a player, but I didn't know him at all, and he did a really good job. So those are two unusual hires because they were just on rosters last year, but their experience and where they're at, he's a coach's kid, Davis is, and he had a file on his computer of every game plan he ever had since he was in high school and then college and then Texas Tech, and then, Mahomes comes in and then he transfers. It was pretty impressive just going through the process, and I think that the fit for us, too, specifically with that room, I think will be good. Yeah, look, Mike and I have known each other now. I didn't know him when I was in New Orleans until we hired him. We brought him in to work with our kicking game. He helped us tremendously. I consider him one of the best coaches I've been around. I can remember introducing him to our team. If not all of you, but some of you have covered this league long enough that would remember him. If you didn't, you can't vote. But if you did, all right, I'll let you vote. But he would be someone that would be right up there at the top from a coordinator standpoint, a Hall of Fame type coordinator. He's got a unique personality. He's a great teacher, and he thinks outside the box, and I like those traits. So, for him, he's fishing on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and, I give him the call, and it's the same call I gave him a few years ago. I wouldn't do this for anybody, but all right, when does it start? He enjoys coaching, and it'll bring, I think, for me, I always enjoy the veteran teachers, guys that I consider to be real special. So he'll serve in a number of roles as we put in not only our special teams, but we put in a program, and I think he's got a great background. And he's a good teacher.
What did you like about Christian Parker and Marcus?
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things prior. When I took the job, prior to getting in the building, and so I wanted to visit with those guys. They were real bright when I visited with them. You don't want to lose good talent, and it's the same with your locker room. You don't want to lose players that are possibly leaving. Christian's well-versed. When you listen to him talk about coverage play and how it fits the fronts, those two have been real instrumental on the defensive coordinator interview process. They sat in on the second round of meetings and interviews. So, Marcus the same way. They're both young, extremely talented coaches that you could the first impressions were immediate for me, and then knowing how others in the building felt, all of that helped me make a decision pretty quickly. Yeah. So during the interview process, his name came up. I talked about things that I thought were important. It's hard to have a great training room in the NFL. I mean, it's kind of like I don't know. I think the 32 teams, there's always that feeling there's a better training room somewhere else, right? And I watched our transition when Bo came in New Orleans and how the players responded, not only just the veteran players, but some of the younger players. And if you just Google searched the amount of players that send him congratulations or had comments, it gives you an idea how he was thought of. So it's kind of hard to have that, but when you have it, like, you recognize it's special because he's firsthand, like, dealing with the injuries and dealing with, the setbacks, and it can be a lonely place if you're a player, while you're missing time. He's very much respected. I mean, he fellowed under Andrews. We lost him in New Orleans, and we tried not to, but he wanted to live a little bit closer to Baton Rouge, and that's why he went back up there. But that's a game changer for us, I think.
I saw you met with Russell Wilson at the Super Bowl.
Well, we actually had dinner.
What are your thoughts in terms of how he wants to be coached this year? He's looking forward to being coached by you.
Yeah.
Everything that happened last year.
Yeah, we had a good dinner. There was a group of people at our table. Joe Montana was at our table, so I know Russell was interested in talking about, where we're going, and I was interested in learning from Joe Montana. And so we found it was a good conversation, and we're looking forward to the start of the season. Obviously, certainly for Russell's standards and the Broncos standards, it wasn't the type of year that they wanted, and typically that's why new head coaches arrive, right? So, we got a lot of work ahead of us right now. We're just kind of getting started. This is obviously an important process, close to finishing the staff hirings, and then, when the time comes, when our off-season program begins, then we'll get, a little bit more closely involved into how we see these roles unfolding for coaches, for players. But you kind of hit the ground running, though. You're going, right? And so that's kind of where it's at now. No, we've spoken text, but this is the time of the year where these guys are away for, and I've talked periodically with Drew as well. Those guys, I think, live near each other in San Diego. And right towards the end, Drew was finally texting me like, hey, if you're going to take this job, please do it, because he's wearing me out with the text that we're going back and forth and the conversations between he and Drew. So we'll have a chance to meet, I'm sure, periodically here in the next month. No, I interviewed Matt, so there's, I think, there's a number of reports. Yeah, he's outstanding. I've known him for a long time. We practiced against the Patriots. I think he's extremely talented. He's a guy that I think they've won 5 Super Bowls while he was calling defenses. So, he that was easy. I knew right away I wanted to interview Matt. I knew right away I wanted to interview Vance. I've known those guys. And then I thought, man, Rex made a lot of sense, and so it's not that. It is funny. You come to this combine, it's been 3 years for me, and there's a lot of younger faces. Every year you recognize fewer and fewer, and then pretty soon you just don't come anymore. But Sean Desai was someone I knew I wanted to visit with. He was in Chicago with Ryan Pace and with Vic. Vic was supposed to be part of the plan, then you guys scared him away, so. That's a fair question. Yeah, I would say it's a little early to answer that. The question was, do I still possibly vision a role for Matt? And we just got here. He and I are going to talk this week, and I wouldn't rule that out though. If that were to possibly if that possibly came to fruition, it would be for a few things. I'd certainly want to talk to Vance and our defensive coaches, and but I know Matt well enough to know how smart he is and what he can contribute. So we'll see. I think I knew Joe was coming. I didn't know if he was going to play bass guitar or drums, or I didn't know his role yet. So, but I knew he was coming. Say that again. Well, we're coaching the whole team, so I'm not hiring the head coach of special teams or the head coach of defense. Ben Kotweek has coordinated a number of good defenses or a number of good special teams. Obviously, look, there's certain things I enjoy. I enjoy being on the offensive side of the ball, and so, but we're trying to find the right teachers, but also the right room relative to compatibility. How do these guys? I think that's important as a staff. If we're expecting that from our team, I think we've got to have that as a coaching staff as well. So it's a little different process that I've only done one other time. I did it in 2006, and so after that, you plug in pieces to replace coaches that leave. That happens every year, but you don't do this a lot where it's like, here we go, get out the pad of paper and start writing names, and so it's an interesting process. It's exciting actually, and you recognize how important it is because you're putting together what's going to be the leadership of your team, and you're putting together guys. You're looking for guys that really care about teaching, care about the players, but also care about working in a setting that's conducive to winning, and that means sometimes being able to kind of lay down your arms, let the egos, kind of go by the wayside, and just focus on what's best for the team. And then when that happens, you get something, and then pretty soon everyone benefits from that. Yeah, look, a lot was made of that, and it was just an honest answer. I know what I'm familiar with and what I'm expecting, and so you guys will hear me throughout this season. At some point, we'll digest 22, or you guys will digest 22. But for me and this team, when we get into the off season, I'm going to park a car with no rear view mirrors. I don't know what this one's called either. That's a rear view mirror, side view mirrors. Those will all be gone, and we got to get past all those difficult things. It was a tough year, and so someone said it last night. I forget what I was watching. If they have success last night, I don't think the upstairs meeting room matters to anybody. I don't think it matters because I didn't see any articles from any of you, prior to week 1 or week 2, and that was happening. But that's what happens when you lose. Then everything gets looked at closely, and including the coaching. So, and we'll have a way of doing business, and I think it'll be what I'm familiar with and best for the players. Say it again.
You mentioned Vic
Fangio. Yeah.
To what extent did you have discussions with him about possibly joining you this time, and what are the Dolphins getting in him?
Let's start with the Dolphins. They're getting a tremendous coach. I mean, you keep hearing everyone's running Fangio's defense, and then Fangio and I are retired, just sitting out there. I used to give him a hard time. I'm like, God, Vic, half the teams in this league are running your defense, and you haven't met half those people. Look, I consider him a friend. We've never worked together, but Vic Fangio is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is where my mom and dad were from. My dad went to the same high school as Vic Fangio, Dunmore High, and my cousin taught Vic Fangio 6th grade math in Scranton. I've never lived in Scranton, all right? They filmed the Office there, I think, which was a good show. Do I think he would have been a great asset for us? Yes. And so we were planning, in this year away, if the right scenario came up, that we'd work together. And I think this one was just a little unique because it wasn't too long ago he was here. But certainly I talked to him, tried to twist his arm, and I'm excited for his opportunity in Miami. I think he's a talented coach. We went against each other for years, like our teams, and he was always a challenge. We got a lot more. You okay with me telling him? All right.
It seems like you have more youth and experience on your offensive side of the coaching staff, more experienced guys on special teams. Is that like
Well, if you assign Westhoff to the curve, it just – I mean, what's the median, the high? What's that experiment? So I think we've got – I would say this, and Greg texted me this the other day, Mr. Penner. He said, I really like the makeup of how this staff is coming together relative to experience, relative to a number of things. And Parcells wanted to be around younger coaches. He talked about it all the time. And so I like being around younger coaches now. I mean, I still consider myself a younger coach, but then, I sit in the room and listen to these young coaches that I enjoy. You get energized. And then there's some experience, and there's just a little bit of everything. And there wasn't any design. I think it was just finding the best people. So Bo was brought up, Dan Dalrymple in the strength conditioning. We've got another hire we're going to make over there. But each step of the way, there's been a vision as to what does this ingredient bring to the recipe. And I can say that. And I think that's the unique thing of putting together a staff. Of really trying to anticipate how the room will interact. Greg Minuski, like you guys will have a chance to get around these guys. He himself has got a unique personality and someone that I was drawn to. He's got experience, he's played, and I think that anywhere he's been, his players have spoken highly of him. So. So there's a lot of thought that way as to how it all comes together. I don't know. We just had our first coffee together at the Combine, so it's day by day. We had interviews last night. I really enjoy our time so far that we've shared. I don't want to say his personality is similar to Mickey's, but there's is an interesting comparison. He loves scouting, so we flew in yesterday. We were at interviews last night. I think he's going to follow me. Oh, he's waiting. That's why I'm getting the 2 questions challenge. All right. I'm sorry, George. I still haven't recovered from the Minneapolis Miracle, and so that's the one trump card. Like, you brought up something the other day. They were just talking, do you remember when this happened? And I'm like, you're not talking about that right now, are you? A successful and unsuccessful play caller. That's tough. I think, look, number one, you have to have good players to be a good play caller, I think. You can be a bad player with good – you can be a bad play caller with good players, and that's not good. So there's a back and forth with that. I think understanding how it can change each week and not being and really doing a good job self-scouting yourself, so that you don't. If you're not paying attention over 3 weeks, you can have some trends that you're like, wow, I didn't know that. So I think you have to do a good job of looking inward, and then. I think, see if this makes sense. It's a little bit easier. It's not it's not required, but it's a little easier if you're the head coach, because when you're the play caller for like Parcells, which I was, like you got to worry about the play, but you also got to worry about pleasing him. And so it's a little easier to be a little bit more bold when it just stops with you. And so, with Bill, you'd call a play and you'd hear this, and you'd be like, and then if it worked, he'd be like, "That a boy." But if it didn't work, and so you had to tune out the radio static a little bit. Well, I didn't like it. I said, I think I'm a little jealous that we didn't come up with the idea, right? And it was just a version of a quarterback sneak, but I think there's a little bit more to it. And then everyone's pushing, and it's a scrum. And so here's one of the things you learn. Like, you can't control. Like, if they vote to not allow it, then great. If they vote to leave it alone, then great. Then let's study it. And, if we can get a yard. So I kind of felt that way when I was asked at Fox by it wasn't Dean. I think I was asked by anyway, I was asked at Fox about that play, and it might have been Dean, and I just said, yeah, if that is allowed, then all of us would look at more film and try to put it in ourselves. I mean, we'd try to do that. But someone the other night in the XFL ran that same scheme, and like the whole pile went backwards. And I thought, they didn't get the right technique or the coaching. It didn't look the same as Philadelphia's. But anyway, we'll see what happens. It's something I don't really worry about. If they allow it, then you look at how you can do it. If they don't allow it, you get on, do something else. 2 more. Building a culture. I think. All right. So beyond people, it's every detail. Every little thing matters. In almost an obsessive way. That because all of those details matter inside the framework of the field, and we obsess as coaches and teachers on doing the little things well. But that has to exist in every other area of your building, and in your equipment room, in your training room, in your cafeteria, just and pretty soon then, the building all moves in a direction kind of in concert, and that's pretty cool when that happens. It's not easy. People talk about it, they search for it like the Holy Grail a little bit, but I've seen it, I've been a part of it, and it requires a little bit of unselfishness from all of us in knowing that if we're all moving in this one direction, chances are it's going to benefit all of us that are moving. No, Matt's the focus on. I interviewed him as a defensive coordinator, so that was defense. All right, one more, last question. Yeah, I don't know if it was a deep dive. It wasn't with scuba tanks, but it was with a snorkel. So I've had a chance to look with George, talk about our players. When we get back from the combine, we'll have another meeting that'll take probably the better part of 2 days on our roster, but we've kind of been ongoing doing that. So anyway, all right, thank you guys. Yep.
Doing? It's a tough act to follow. Good to see everybody today. Always look forward to coming to Indy. Seeing the players, compete in a less than natural, uncomfortable environment, and it's really good for our scouts and our coaches to spend as much time as we can around these players, so we can make the best possible decision moving forward. It's been a busy month. Obviously, I've really enjoyed working side by side with Sean, and I thought we have good chemistry together, a lot of collaboration. Since we made the trade, we've been off and running, and Sean, putting his staff together, and we've been in draft meetings, free agent prep, so a lot going on in a short time. I think we've accomplished a lot, but we have a long way to go. Couldn't be more impressed with Sean and the staff he put together. I know he's got a few more hires, but he's been methodical throughout the process. His attention to detail. He had a vision for what he's looking for, and I felt he hired a really good staff. And so it'll be good with the new coaches to get with the scouts this week, talk players. The more we can talk and collaborate, the better decisions we will make. And so this will be a real productive week for us. We get back, we'll get into more free agent meetings with the coaches. So look forward to having a good week. And with that, we'll take your questions.
George, you arrived at the combine, started with 2 picks in the third round. How much will the evaluation in this offseason be about potentially adding more draft picks?
Yeah, we're always looking to add. It's not always easy. It's easier to do during the draft, to move back, and you can acquire picks. We've done that here. We've done that at other places I've been. I do think the top 5 of the third round is kind of the sweet spot of the draft, and if we can get a couple really good players to contribute, we're going to do that. But we're always looking for picks.
George, how long does it take in your experience to feel comfortable knowing this is the prototype for what my coach is looking for at this spot?
Yeah, I think you never stop learning. I was with Mike Zimmer for 4 years. You're still learning, because things evolve, things change, defensive change, offensive change. But the more time, Sean and I, we talk a lot of football. We talk coaches, but we're digging into, what are we looking for at left tackle? What are we looking for at our X position? So you never quite become an expert, but the goal is for our scouts to be experts. They can walk on a campus and say that's a Denver Bronco player. And so the more we talk, and it'll start this week with our new coaches, the better decisions we'll make.
What did you envision with Jerry and Jeudy? You got this year on.
Yeah, really happy with how Jerry finished off the season, especially the last couple of games. And we make those decisions, I believe, in May, right near the draft, we'll make that decision. But really happy with where Jerry's at.
How would you characterize talks with Draymond?
Very positive. I've spoken with his agent, Kyle McCarthy from Athletes First, had a number of conversations with Draymond. Draymond's a very good player. He's one of our core players on defense, and so they've been very positive.
What's the process like trading for a coach? How is that different?
Pretty unique. I've never done it. Really don't know many people that have done it, but it's unique, especially when you're it's working parallel with a coach search. And so very challenging. I give the Saints, Mickey Loomis, a lot of credit, first class all the way. The goal, going into it was a win-win. We wanted Sean, they wanted to get some picks, and I think we accomplished that.
Sean was in New Orleans. They drafted heavy on the offensive line for multiple years. Where does it stand with in your view of your old line, and do you expect Garrett Bowles to be healthy even as early as he is?
Yeah, we need to upgrade at the offensive line. We do expect Garrett to be healthy. There's a lot of different ways to acquire any position. Free agency, the draft. It just kind of depends what's stronger. Is it free agency stronger, or is the draft stronger? And obviously we need to upgrade there in the offensive line.
When you hear Sean, Gary, and Mickey, you talk about what's fun. They were together for a long time really well. I guess is that encouraging, or how do you process that?
Well, yeah, it's encouraging. Mickey's had a lot of success in this league, so I take it as a compliment. He's got a Southern twang. I don't, but I respect Mickey, and so for Sean to say that, I take it as a compliment. I've admired Vance from afar. I've never known him. I've heard a lot of really good things, and just we talked to a lot of different coaches, offensive coaches that have gone against Vance, and he's hard. He's hard to scheme against. He's hard to go against. He hasn't always been in the perfect situations. His defenses always play hard. They're hard to scheme against. They get after the quarterback. They're good in the pass game. So there's a lot of things. Turn the ball over. So just talking to a lot of people in the league, and I've always had respect for Vance. I think he's going to be great.
What impressed you most about Davis Webb, and why is he the right quarterback?
Man, Davis, I didn't know. I think I interviewed him coming out of the draft. I didn't know a lot about him. I knew he played this year, a little bit, and people kept bringing his name up to us, and so we brought him in, and he walks in the room, he lights up the room. And then when you start talking football with him, he's poised beyond his years. He's wise beyond his years. Just great football knowledge. I sat in there with Davis and the offensive staff, and and he blew them away. And just, he's 28 years old. And but he's really bright. He's played, so he's really been a coach on the field, since he's been in the league. When you talk to the Giants and the Buffalo Bills and the value he brought to some of those quarterbacks there, whether it was Eli or Josh, and so really excited about the hire. Yes. Well, we have a long ways to go. I mean, we ended up, I don't know how many backs played. I look at my depth chart, we have like 9 running backs. So we obviously we had a lot of injuries there. Javonte, we feel, will be healthy. We need to add. We're high on some of the guys that are up, some of the free agents. We do have Chase Edmonds coming back, but we do need to add at that position. Yeah, I think Bo's a game changer. Sean, has been speaking about him since our first interview with Sean, and then you talk to the people at LSU, the people at the Saints, and he's very progressive, data oriented on the medical side. He's going to bring it all together. He'll be over the top. We have a lot of good people in our building. He'll kind of bring everything together: strength and conditioning in the training room, nutrition. Very humble. He's got a great way about him, and just I think he's going to be a game changer for us.
What's different about Bo? Maybe the way things were done.
We'll see. I have not worked with Bo, but just the way he describes it, more data driven. And again, he's going to be over the top, so he'll be able to integrate all 3: strength and conditioning, nutrition, and so he'll bring it all together. Yeah. Vic wasn't really into data. Mike Zimmer, I've been with some old school guys who weren't really into it. Sean's old school, but just depends on the coach and your sports science staff. But no, Sean is definitely into it, and I think it's going to help us. His defensive front where? Here? Yeah, we're still. They're a little more attacking, a little more aggressive, get up the field. I do feel our defensive line fits that mold. We watched a lot of tape with Vance, and he has a vision for our defensive line and some of the pieces we have up front. So I think, our outside backers, they're athletic, they can rush the passer. You can ask Vance, but he feels like our defensive front really fits what he does.
Russ continues to be the crush for stuff that happened last season, even recently last Friday. Do you think he's going to be able to put all of that behind him and move forward?
I do. I think Russ has moved forward. We've all moved forward. We've talked about last year, and it's been well documented. It didn't go our way. It wasn't all his fault. We're all to blame, and we have to improve. We have to move on, and with Sean here, with our new staff, I think we will. Yeah. No, I think depth later in the round. It happened last year a little bit even. The depth later in the rounds. I felt like we got to the later rounds, it kind of fell off. Where maybe in previous years there was a little more depth. We'll see. We're still getting through the process here. At the Combine, we'll have our second wave of draft meetings. But, no, that's a really good point. And we've talked about that a lot. And so we'll see, how quickly it falls off this year. I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen with this NIL. I mean, it's how hungry is a player when he's making $1 million? What's he going to be like when we bring to our building? We have to de-recruit him. So I think it's all so new. No one really knows what's going to happen.
George, do you guys keep the update on Javonte ready to start the year?
I think he's on track. I don't want to put a date on it, but he's out there jogging. He's working his butt off. He's rehabbing, and Javonte. They anticipate he would be ready for the start of the season.
Is there a plan in place in case he's not ready to go?
Yeah, we'll have a plan. We'll have another back or two to be ready if he can't go.
Are those guys on the roster right now?
Yeah, they may be, but we're always looking. I know it's a deep free agent class. It's a deep draft class for running backs, so we're always going to look to upgrade. Yeah. I mean, he's just a baller. You know, we signed him to be a really good special teamer, you know, compete for the starting job, and didn't even start, you know, to start the year, and then he just took off. He's just a football player. We'd love to have Alex back. He's a great leader, has a nose for the ball. Players gravitate towards him, so we'd like to have Alex back.
Just a couple more, please. 2 more.
Yeah, I do. I do think Randy will be ready. You know, he had a tough season. Started off, you know, I thought he was one of the more explosive players, pass rushers in the league, and then got, you know, the first 3 weeks, and then obviously had the injury against the Raiders, and then, you know, took a while to come back. When he came back, did some good things, but I think the fact that he doesn't have to rehab this offseason will really help Randy. Randy's a dynamic player. We need to keep him available. And I do anticipate he'll be ready for the offseason program. It's very loud. I'm sorry, one more time? Oh, yeah, I mean, I've been through this one other time. When I was with the Miami Dolphins, we had signed Jason Garrett late in the season. You know, we had a bunch of quarterbacks get hurt, and Coach Saban came in, and we recommended Jason to Coach Saban. He interviewed him. He blew him away. We hired him. And so, you know, I don't know how many times this has been done. You have to be pretty unique. You have to have a great football mind. You know, I know he knows quarterbacks. He knows that position. He's poised beyond his years. He's been a coach, kind of like Jason, throughout his career. And Jason played a little more, but you know, I see a parallel there. So it can happen. He really impressed a veteran offensive staff when he sat in that room, and I was in the room.
Last question.
Every year since
Yeah, that was a huge loss. You know, you can argue one of the biggest losses of the season. When he got hurt that day, the whole building was deflated. You guys know Tim, what he brings every day. The leader, really good player. He's running now. He's jogging. We anticipate him. You know, I don't know where he'll be back in terms of the off-season programs, but, you know, next season certainly he'll be 100%.
Thanks, everybody.
you guys look at the Steelers history, that's always been a big part of the our winning team has been the O-line, the line, and the big guys. And so Philadelphia, what do you see that for Philadelphia? Always been a part of their first. You know, Andy's got a